Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. This video is the third part of my discussion about NASA rewriting climate history. The focus of this video is the year 1878, but first let's briefly review some of NASA's data tampering. In 1999, NASA showed the United States cooling during the last 70 years of the 20th century. But they've since turned this cooling into warming. They tampered with the data to make the past cooler and the present warmer. In 1981, NASA showed 0.35 degrees Celsius warming during the century from 1880 to 1980, and they showed 1980 cooler than 1940. Since then, they have doubled 1880 to 1980 warming, and they showed 1980 much warmer than 1940. In 2001, NASA showed 0.5 degrees Celsius warming from 1880 to the year 2000. But they've since altered the data and now show twice as much warming from 1880 to 2000 as they did 20 years ago. Now let's get to the topic of this video. 20 years ago, NASA showed no net warming from the 1870s through the 1970s. And they showed that 1878 was the warmest year of that period. But NASA has since erased all of the data prior to 1880 and now shows a strong warming trend during that same period. By hiding and tampering with the data, they created a warming trend which doesn't actually exist. Let's take a look at the year 1878, which NASA is now hiding. There was no winter in Minnesota during the year 1878. There was spectacular heat in Australia. Burke, New South Wales got up to 122 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius. Birds were dropping dead in large numbers. According to this newspaper article from 1931, nearly 10 million people in China died from starvation during the drought of 1877 and 1878. The drought extended far beyond China, however. It was described as a universal drought. China and India were hit particularly hard. New Zealand and Tasmania were also hit very hard by the drought. The drought which has prevailed for many months in almost every portion of the southern hemisphere. People were trying to understand what was causing the drought. Some experts believed it was caused by sunspots, but there were other theories as well. There was terrible drought and famine in India, China, and South America. Africa was also hit very hard by the drought. This followed 3 years of severe drought in the eastern United States. In Australia, the month of January 1878 will be long remembered by the farming community as a period of heat and drought scarcely ever known or experienced in this colony before. Yarrawonga was 123 degrees in the shade and 158 degrees in the sun. There were terrible deadly heat waves occurring in the United States as well. The heat in New South Wales was extraordinary. Heat deaths were occurring all over Australia. A freak 1870s climate event caused drought across 3 continents. Between 1875 and 1878, severe droughts ravaged India, China, and parts of Africa and South America. The result was a famine that struck 3 continents and lasted 3 years. It was one of the worst humanitarian disasters in history. And as we've already seen, the drought struck the United States as well. About 10 million people died in India. About 20 million died in China, and about 0.5 to 1 million died in Brazil. Photographs taken in India during that famine showed the unimaginable horror. Quite a contrast from Greta riding on $1 million yacht and screaming that other people stole her childhood. She imagines that the climate was much better 150 years ago, when people in China had to sell their children because the drought was so bad they couldn't feed them anymore. So many people died in China that they couldn't bury all of them, and the corpses were left to be devoured by birds and other animals. The heat in Calcutta was unprecedented. Part of the cause of the extreme weather of 1877 and 1878 was the largest El Nino on record. Sea surface temperatures remained high for 16 months. That makes it bigger than the huge El Ninos of 1997, 1998, and 2015, 2016. It was also the strongest Indian Ocean dipole on record, which weakens India's monsoons. And incredibly, 1878 was also the highest year of the Atlantic multidecadal oscillation. Atmospheric carbon dioxide levels were very low in 1878, so it's pretty clear there were other factors controlling the climate. As of 1995, the Australian Bureau of Meteorology listed the highest temperature ever recorded in New South Wales as 52.8 degrees Celsius at Burke in 1877. Since 1995, the Bureau of Meteorology has erased the record heat for New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and Western Australia. The record heat in those four states didn't suit the government's global warming agenda, so they made it disappear. And NASA has completely erased the year 1878, which was probably the hottest year on record. Now they don't show any data before 1880. But I don't think NASA data tampering is going to bring back to life any of the tens of millions of people who died from the heat and drought of 1878. Toto's been busy for the past 14 years pulling back the curtain on these frauds at government agencies. You can visit him, Kyrie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.